Hello everybody, it's Michael from Replica Airguns with another tabletop video review for you guys. Today we're looking at the Gamo P900 IGT .177 Caliber Pellet Pistol. If you haven't already checked out my field test shooting video, I have made one for this gun already. Usually I do that one after the tabletop video, but in this case I actually was doing another gun earlier this week, so I made that field test shooting video for the Gamo P900 then. I'll put a link in the description of this video so you can find it. Now before I get started, I want to let you know the Gamo P900 is available in both our Canada and US Replica Airgun stores over at replicaAirguns.ca for Canada and replicaAirguns.us for the US. And again, I'll put links in the description to buy that in our Canada or US stores. And before I get to the specifications, we'll just take a quick look at the box, or clamshell in this case, that it comes in. Pretty straightforward. You can see here you have the up to 400 FPS with the PBA Platinum. Those are light. Basically, they're an alloy pellet, probably going to come in around 5 grains, something like that. And you can see here, ergonomic design and rubberized grip. I'm going to have to say the grips really aren't rubberized. It looks like they're just all part of the plastic build of this gun. I'm not sure why they say rubberized. Maybe there's a spray coating that they put on some of them, but they didn't put it on this one. I can tell you that. It doesn't feel any different than the rest of the gun. Fiber optic sights, basically just on the front. The rear one is not fiber optic, but it is adjustable. And you don't need any CO2 since this is a break barrel pellet pistol, right? Okay, on the back, not too much more really here. We do have some caliber there, weight, 1.28 pounds length. And I'll get into that a bit when I do the specifications here. Not much more really going on here. Break barrel pellet pistol, again, IGT. Now what the IGT does stand for, I'll get into this more. It stands for, see if you can see that, inert gas technology. We'll get into that in a bit here, okay? All right, some of the specifications for this pistol. It is a break barrel gas piston design, so it uses there, again, that IGT inert gas technology. Basically, that's just fancy lingo for gas piston. And it shoots .177 caliber pellets. It is a single shot pistol. You have to cock it and load it for each shot. Gamo claims 400 FPS using PBA Platinum pellets, but I was getting closer to 300 with standard lead pellets that will weigh about 7 grain. Again, it has that fiber optic front sight, and the rear sight is adjustable for windage. I'll show you that when I do the walk around of the gun. It does have a rifled steel barrel, which by the way is about 6.25 inches. The pistol is ambidextrous in design, so it doesn't matter if you're left or right-handed. It weighs about 1.28 pounds or 580 grams and is a total length of 12.52 inches. This pistol is mostly plastic but does have some metal parts throughout it, and this gun is made in Spain. One other point to note is it does have what they call the SAT, which stands for Smooth Action Trigger, and I'll get into the trigger pull when I talk a little bit more about this gun. Now, it's not really a replica of any one particular pistol. You'll have to kind of figure out what you think it looks like for yourself. But I do want to compare it to the Umarex Browning Buckmark, and that's the URX. It's another break barrel pellet pistol that I have reviewed, and I did want to compare them because they're similar in that they are break barrel pistols, right? So this is a break barrel pistol. A little easier to cock for sure. They both shoot about the same FPS. I was getting a little over 300 FPS with 7 grains shooting the Buckmark. And it was able to get close to a 1/2 inch grouping, which I was also able to get with the P900 at 30 feet out. So both are capable of similar accuracy and similar feet per second, and they're both low-cost pellet target pistols. The Browning Buckmark URX just is more of a replica of an actual real steel Browning, and it's a little bit less expensive. Now, it didn't come with this red dot sight. You do have open sights on it, which, by the way, are adjustable for windage, similarly to the P900. So they're similar in features and performance. It just kind of really depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for more of a replica pellet plinker or versus something that's more designed specifically for target and fairly decent accuracy. All right, at this point, let's do a walk around of the Gamo P900 IGT. Let's take a look at the left side here. We'll get in here. All right, so we have the name Gamo and P900. IGT is just basically on or inscribed. These guys are molded right into the plastic. So it's a nice finish there. You have the blue here, which generally speaking, that's going to let you know it's a gas piston. Most of the guns that have gas pistons have some sort of coloring like that. It's pretty traditional. You do have the bolts or cross bolt safety. That's for fire. That's safe, right? I haven't cocked it at this point. This does look like some sort of a rail, but it's not, because when you crank it, you have to hold it. You don't want your thumb there. You can break it open like that, but when you crank it, you're gonna wanna keep your thumb out of between there, or you're gonna pinch it. I'm just gonna release the pressure. There's nothing in here, but I'm just gonna point it down. Okay, there we go. Now it's not a spring piston, so that shouldn't really hurt it. Typically speaking, with spring piston pellet guns, you don't want to dry shoot them. With a gas piston, I think you're a little bit safer. Wouldn't recommend doing it all the time, but you can see it's got some reinforcing underneath here. It's fairly open, but it is reinforced. It's got some rigidity by the way it's designed here, but you can see into the barrel there area. You've got your lever there. It's basically two sides pressed together, placed together. You've got your screws to hold it together, of course. Okay, more Gamo inscriptions there. All right, some warning instructions. Let's take a look at that red dot on the front there. See if we can get in here. It's pretty close there. Okay, red dot on the front, sort of orange dot. And then on the back, we have an adjustable rear sight, just a groove sight. You do have the adjustment for windage, but not elevation. Now for me, it was shooting pretty close to the center or the bullseye at 30 feet, just a little bit high. So depending on how far out you're shooting it, you should have no problem getting it pretty close to the target. It was shooting a bit left for me when I shot it, so I could adjust it to the right easily with the sights. The trigger's not too bad. It really isn't overly heavy. I kind of said it was medium, but you know, it's more lighter to medium. It's really not bad. It's very, very, it doesn't have a lot of take up, and it's fairly crisp, and you can really anticipate the break point fairly easily. So it's not a bad trigger in general, especially if you're shooting two-handed. You shouldn't have any problem with this gun, and that's what I'd recommend for most guns, is shooting two-handed for stability. All right, so that pretty much sums it up. There's the front there. You got slightly recessed barrel. You've got this hooded front sight, right? All right. All right, let's talk some pros and cons for the P900 IGT Gamo. It's a reasonably priced target pistol at just around $100 Canadian, a little bit cheaper in the US. And it performed fairly well for me. I got about a 0.5-inch grouping from 30 feet away using a rested position. And again, Gamo claims 400 FPS, but that's with the lightweight pellets, the alloy pellets, that are typically going to be around 5 grain versus the 7 grain that I was using. Now the IGT, or inert gas technology, has less vibration and no reduction to the power over time. What I mean by that is a spring piston, especially if you leave it cocked, it can depreciate the spring in that the spring will get weaker, and typically over time, springs can just get weaker. Whereas with a gas piston, you should notice the power becoming less or weaker over time, unless there's some sort of a leak going on inside. I do like the fiber optic front sight, it's easy to see, and that adjustable rear sight for windage is a nice touch. It's a little bit too bad it wasn't adjustable for elevation, but you can, over time, kind of figure out how high or how low it shoots at different distances and just adjust for that. And as with most gas piston or spring piston guns, they're fairly inexpensive to shoot. You don't require any CO2. All you got to do is use a little bit of elbow strength there to cock it, and then just place your pellet in the breech there and you're ready to go. Now this gun is made in Spain, so some of you might like that as opposed to Taiwan or China. It also has that ambidextrous design, so it doesn't really matter if you're left or right-handed. The grips are pretty much the same on both sides. And getting back to the trigger pull, I did find it to be a pretty decent trigger, not as light as some single action target pistols, but definitely not too heavy. With some of the cons, well, it's not a super powerful pistol, considering that the cocking effort seems to be pretty high, probably because the barrel's so short it just doesn't give you a lot of leverage. That said, the Umrex Buckmark seemed to be a lot easier to cock, and yet it was getting around the same feet per second. Again, I want to remind you the Gamo P900 IGT .177 caliber pellet pistol is available in both our Canada and US online replica airgun stores over at replicaairguns.ca and replicaairguns.us. I'll provide links in the description of this video, so check those out if you're interested in buying one. If you're interested in other products, air guns, pellet guns, BB guns, blank guns, airsoft guns, paintball guns, you name it, accessories, we have them over at replicaairguns.ca and replicaairguns.us. Also check out replicaairguns.com for the articles, posts, and reviews there. Usually I have additional pictures for you guys along with my written post. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe. Also check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Username is Replica Airguns. All right, thanks for watching. Until next time, Take care.